You might think that Thelema is all about magic and individual freedom. But what if I told you that's not the full story? In this video, we're diving into the deeper truth behind Aleister Crowley's magical philosophy and why Thelema goes beyond magic and ritual. By the end, you'll see how everything that you do, from the mystical to the mundane, is an expression of your divine will. If you enjoy this video, make sure you like it and subscribe to the channel. Also, please consider supporting me on Patreon. I will leave a link to my Patreon in the description for this video. Let's get started. If anyone knows anything at all about Aleister Crowley and Thelema, they know about true will and magic. And yet, if that's all they know, it gives rise to some misconceptions. Probably the most common misconception is that Thelema is a kind of meta-religion or a kind of meta-occultism focused on freedom of expression or individual freedom. This is problematic for a number of reasons. For example, while some degree of personal freedom is necessary in order to practice Thelema, it's not as though there's anything intrinsically Thelemic about personal autonomy. The idea of personal freedom originated outside of Thelema and enjoys a very happy life having nothing to do with Aleister Crowley. I've met many atheists and even some Christians who enjoy greater personal freedom than some Thelemites that I've known. If you don't have enough personal freedom in your life, you're going to have a really hard time practicing Thelema. But it's not as though you have to be a Thelemite in order to enjoy personal freedom and personal autonomy. Secondly, while magic is arguably necessary to practicing Thelema, it's also not inherently Thelemic to practice occultism, summon spirits, make planetary talismans, study the tree of life, or collect books on the occult. You could be quite devoted to the study of occultism and magic, and these practices could have many effects, some of which are beneficial. And you could very well think that what you're doing is Thelemic, but if it's not guided by the right intention, then Crowley would not have recognized it as Thelemic. But in order to have right intention, you have to have right view. You have to have a certain understanding of how reality is organized. This is because it's impossible to have an intention without some recognition of here versus there. These terms, right intention and right view, come from the Noble Eightfold Path in Buddhism. In order to attain enlightenment in Buddhism, you have to form the right intention. But in order to understand what the right intention is, you have to have some rudimentary idea of what enlightenment is. This is supplied by the Four Noble Truths, which compose right view in Buddhism. A complete understanding of the Four Noble Truths only comes with attaining the first stage of enlightenment in Buddhism. But you can't even begin unless you have some kind of rudimentary understanding of what enlightenment is. If you didn't have that, then the intention would be incoherent. A similar thing applies in Thelema. In Thelema, right intention means that you are practicing with the intention of realizing your own divinity in every experience. Full stop. It does not matter what action you're performing. You could be summoning Lucifer himself to visible impurits in front of you, or you could be spreading jam on toast. It's only Thelemic if the action is guided by the intention of realizing your godhead in the experience. This is both very specific but highly flexible. The specificity comes from right view. Right view tells you more or less what it means to realize godhead in an experience. The Book of the Law teaches us that every man and every woman is a star. A star is an immortal, indestructible god. It exists outside of space and time, but it projects a finite image of itself into space and time. That's what you and I are. The whole reason that we exist is so that these gods can explore their universes. This means that who you ordinarily take yourself to be is not who you really are. Your true self lies beyond the veils of imagination, reason, and what you consider to be your personal will. But since everything you take yourself to be is actually a projection of this immortal God, the nature of this God makes itself felt through the details of your mortal finite life. And so Thelemic liberation entails following the stream of those energetic vibrations back to their source beyond the veil of the unconscious. Crowley refers to this as the path of initiation. It involves aligning your personal will with the will of the star and coming to realize that the self that you take yourself to be is not your true self, but the star is your true self. I've covered all of this in more depth in other videos, but that's the gist of it. You can see how the theory or the view underwrites an intention. Because we are projections in space-time of an immortal, indestructible God, it makes sense to get ourselves, to get our lives right with this God. To put it another way, it would only make sense to discover our true selves, to discover our true wills, if they really existed. If they didn't really exist, then it would make no sense to set the intention. By the way, if you're enjoying this explanation of Thelema, there's a really good chance you would enjoy my guide, Unlock the Mysteries of Thelema. In this guide, I answer the 10 most frequently asked questions about Thelema. The guide is introduced with a short essay which explains my general approach to Thelema and how I came to it. This guide is great if you're a beginner. It can also help you fill in some gaps if you've been exploring Thelema for a while. Best of all, it's free. There's a link to download it in the description for this video. Now let's get back into right view and right intention in Thelema. The journey back to the source of the self and the will is punctuated by the knowledge and conversation of the Holy Guardian Angel and by crossing the abyss. What this means is that you could be practicing any number of types of magic or even any number of types of spiritual practice, but if the aim of those practices is not the knowledge and conversation of your Holy Guardian Angel, then Crowley would not have recognized the spiritual practice as Thelemic. What this means is that you could be practicing any number of types of magic for any number of reasons, but if that magic is not aimed at the knowledge and conversation of your Holy Guardian Angel, then it's not Thelemic magic. It's something else. And Crowley referred to this something else as black magic. Calling it black magic makes it sound a lot more exciting than it really is. Somebody could be dabbling in tarot or dabbling in spirit summoning just for shits and giggles, not really doing anything harmful with it, and it would technically count as black magic because it's not aimed at knowledge and conversation. That doesn't mean that it's evil or bad. It could be producing all sorts of good things, but it's just not Thelemic from Crowley's perspective. Crowley wrote several rituals that embody right view and right intention. These include saying will, Liberesh Vel Helios, the Star Ruby, the Star Sapphire, Mass of the Phoenix, and Liber 15, the Gnostic Mass. If you are mindfully practicing these rituals, you are almost guaranteed to be doing something that embodies right view and right intention. But the real power of right view and right intention comes from realizing that you don't actually have to be practicing any kind of occultism or any kind of magic necessarily in order to be on the Thelemic spiritual path. To be part of the congregation of the Gnostic Mass is not the same thing as performing a magical temple ritual. At the same time, you are part of a community that is celebrating the divinity of every individual. That's right intention guided by right view. Now, if you show up at the Gnostic Mass because you think it has the power to magically manifest a Bugatti for you, that's arguably black magic. But if you're just showing up to the ritual with, good mindfulness and intention to, experience what the ritual is there to allow you to experience, then that is Thelemic right intention guided by right view. It's a Thelemic practice. Crowley describes the second degree of OTO as teaching the sacrament of marriage, which he calls the realization of one's godhead in every experience. The second degree of initiation is not a magical ritual, but it is arguably grounded in right intention and right view. And if you took the message of that degree to heart, you would be practicing right intention in your daily life. You would be living as a Thelemite. This is where the flexibility of Thelema comes in. If you think Thelema is essentially about poring over occult symbolism or thinking about your true will while summoning a demon, then that's very limiting in terms of what Thelema can be for you. In fact, I would go further and argue that a lot of that probably isn't even really Thelemic at the end of the day. But if you start with right view and right intention, then a lot of actions in your life can become Thelemic and in a very deep way. For example, the birth of a child can be celebrated as the incarnation or the beginning of a journey of a god. Death can be experienced as just a transition point between two adventures. Spiritual crises occur because we've fallen out of alignment with who and what we're supposed to be. We're not realizing ourselves in the moment. The pain is calling us back to a world that lies outside of the prison that we've constructed for ourselves. My true self contains every other star within itself. To fall in love with another person is to fall deeper into my own soul. On the other hand, it is the expansion of another universe within my own, a supernova going off, the shockwaves of which can inspire creativity and generation in other areas of my life. There are so many different directions that you can take it once you realize that any act whatsoever can be a sacrament. Right Thelemic intention means the intention to do your true will, or what Crowley sometimes refers to as realizing your Godhead in every experience. What it means to do your true will is given by right Thelemic view, which Crowley also sometimes calls the magical theory of the universe. That is the part of Thelema that does not change over time, and that is not different between any two people. It doesn't matter how badass a sex magician you are. If you are not realizing your Godhead in every experience, then you are not practicing as a Thelemite. Similarly, it doesn't matter how much book knowledge you have of Agrippa, Eliphas Levi, or even Crowley for that matter. If you're not grasping right view, then you're missing the most essential part of Thelemic theory. This might seem dogmatic and restrictive, but once you grasp that this is the core of Thelema, a lot of different avenues for practice open up that weren't there before. What it means to be a Thelemite actually expands with this understanding. It doesn't contract, it becomes fertile soil for the imagination. What do you think? Have the ideas in this video sparked your imagination? Let me know down in the comments. And as usual, if you like this video, you definitely want to check this next one out because I think you're going to really like it. And until next time, love is the law, love under will.